Hey guys, today we have another very special guest. We have Deborah, or other known as the Catholic Carnivore. Hey Deborah,
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Great.
All right, sick. Yeah, she had a pretty cool story with the carnivore diet. So do you wanna tell us a bit about how you found the carnivore diet and your experience with that?
Sure. So I found it about 6 months ago. Um, and my husband and I decided to try it together. Um, we had both been trying keto before that, and I think we both pretty much fell off of the keto pretty easily. We both found it to be a little annoying to track macros um, and we just still had cravings. And so we were going through a really stressful life event and for a long period of time. And so it was too easy for us to just use food, I think, as a comfort and to just go back into our old ways. So he wasn't feeling great physically, especially with his weight. And I was just a mess emotionally and physically from so many health issues that I've had since I was about 13, and they just kept getting worse. And I'm 45 now. And we, I guess, thought about carnivore like from he was listening to Jordan Peterson.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I think the first time I heard about it was like a year or two before that. And I just thought it sounded nuts. But when you've done keto and you're really sick, like I was, it doesn't sound crazy anymore because you just are willing to do anything.
you're desperate. Yeah,
So, yeah. So I decided, okay, I'm going to start this in a couple of weeks, and I said on the 1st of June. And I just listened to a lot of YouTube videos and podcasts, and that was really helpful. Um, and so I really got into my head that this was, this was cool. This is actually working for a lot of people. Maybe it'll work for me.
yeah.
And um, I had severe fatigue, which is not really a diagnosis. It was diagnosed as idiopathic hypersomnia, which means they don't know why you're tired all day, but they just give you a stimulant to stay awake. And I had this fatigue since I was about 13. It was very, very difficult to live with. It makes holding a job or staying in school pretty much
Mm,
very, very difficult. But this medicine that they gave me a couple years ago really helped. And that was helpful because my children were kind of young, and that's really demanding. And it's hard to do that when you're tired all the time. So I took the medicine um, once or twice a day, and that would keep me awake. But I also had a lot of problems with my hormones, and I
yeah.
eventually was experiencing severe PMS symptoms almost half the month. Um, and the PMS was always bad, throughout teenage years, 20s, 30s, but this was way worse. And it was very debilitating. And so I went to my doctor and I said, I don't know what to do. And she was about to refer me to an endocrinologist, but she said, we could give you Zoloft. Um, that's usually can help. And I was very frustrated, almost angry, because I didn't want to go on Zoloft because I had been on and off antidepressants since I was about 20 for depression.
Wow.
And I know how hard it is to get off of them. And the last time I had gotten off of it was very difficult. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. But again, I was desperate. So I went on the antidepressants, and that worked very well, but not perfectly. And when we went through our custody battle last year, which was really stressful, I started having some more symptoms. And that one was really new for me. It was where I had this severe inflammation kind of all through my body. It started in my shoulders, went into my neck, up my head, and it just was very painful. And I didn't understand what it was. Um, and I sort of thought it was just stress. Like some people
Yeah.
just hold stress up here. And I was going to the chiropractor once a week, and then my doctor said, I should get some massages once a week, and this got really stressful because it was expensive. And then she wanted me to take muscle relaxers because that wasn't doing anything, but I couldn't take them because they interfered with my other medications.
Or stuff like
So,
magnesium or
uh, no, it was the muscle relaxer. I don't know what it is. It's a
oh okay.
serious medication that you can't
Oh
take.
okay.
Yeah, one of the other meds I took, you can't take them together or it can cause problems.
Okay.
So I
Yeah,
couldn't get
yeah,
any
continue.
relief. I couldn't get any relief for um, that inflammation. And I just felt bloated all the time. And I was eating really poorly. I was just eating a lot of like gluten-free bread and what do you call it? Um, Keto snacks, like
Yeah.
keto ice cream. And I would just sit and eat like a pint of that at, like instead of dinner. Um, and I do have a history of like compulsive eating from when I was younger, because I was pretty much allowed to, unlimited access to junk. And so and because of a stressful childhood and stuff like that, I was just
Yeah.
eating to kind
Yeah.
of
Cool.
comfort myself. So that I feel like it was God that just brought the carnivore diet like to me, because there I didn't know how I could live like that anymore. Um, you can't take care of your family like you want to. You can't take care of yourself. You can't enjoy your life when you're in so much misery every day. So when
Yeah.
I when we started it, I mean, it was really rough. The keto flu was really, really rough, and I didn't know about
How long did it
electrolytes.
last for?
Mine was really long. It was like 21 days. It was bad. And my husband's was not 21 days. I was kind of jealous. But I found out later it might be because I also had like signs of prediabetes. And
Okay.
if you have blood sugar issues like that, it can take longer for you to get into ketosis. So I really think that's what was going on. And I wasn't taking any electrolytes. And that was that was making it really difficult. But because I've had so much suffering, I just, I was able to get through the 3 weeks. I just trusted. I knew that, I was going to turn a corner. And so it was very cool when I did. And all of these issues, they literally just started melting away, within about 60 days, I'd say. And
Wow.
the inflammation was gone. I got off the other medication for the sleep disorder. I started weaning off the Zoloft. But the biggest thing was like my mindset just kind of shifted into a place that I've never experienced, and I'm 45. So that was like mind blowing. And I'm really fascinated by that aspect of it.
Yeah, that's so cool. So
Yeah.
it's pretty cool how like at first I feel like that's a common trend. At first, everyone's suffering a lot and they have that sort of keto flu or the adaptation phase and you feel crap, but you just want to keep going because you know that better days are coming. And you already
Mm-hmm.
felt so much worse before that you're like, oh,
Right. You don't have anything to
it's
lose.
like, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just really cool how you stuck it through. What's it like sort of being on all those drugs and just being so having debilitating mental illness? What's it feel like in comparison to sort of now when you're coming out of it?
That's a good question. It feels amazing now because I always hated feeling like I had to go to the doctor or, get a pill or fill my prescription. And I'm not saying that like I'm judging people that have to do that. It's just something was off about it. I didn't like feeling like I needed these people to manage me, you know, like, or that I needed this medication to feel okay. Like,
Yeah,
I think I didn't think about that for a long time. I was okay with it for like maybe my 20s and my 30s. But then you get older and you get a little bit wiser and you kind of trust yourself a little bit more, and you start to realize how kind of you might have accidentally fallen into this kind of pattern where you don't trust yourself and you don't really believe there's a way for you to on your own have a healthy, life. And I just felt so out of control and confused and like, why? I always just said, why am I so sick? I don't get it. I don't understand it. um now I do. um but it feels very empowering and very satisfying to be able to feel like I can take care of myself and I can feed myself, what my brain needs. And it's like, oh, I did this
Yeah.
myself. Like, you know,
Yeah. So
cool.
how much of a role do you think that maybe diet or maybe even malnourishment would have played a part of your, because you said you developed chronic fatigue at around 13 years of age. Do you think that that was as a result of like stress or a result of diet or as a result of like inflammation from your diet or not really sure?
I have to say that the longer I'm on this way of eating, the more I believe that it was like malnutrition. And that I think that grains in particular, grains and sugar are like the top thing that cause these issues for
Mm.
most, like with the depression and the anxiety.
Grains are the
Because that's what
worst.
that's what, yeah, they're the worst. And that's what I ate. I mean, I was raised on a lot of grains in the 80s and 90s, and in an Italian house. And
Same.
grains are just part of, that's like the main thing. And
Mm.
I believe they are addictive, and I believe they destroy your mental health. I just do. Um, and I think if somebody doesn't want to do carnivore, or they don't, they're just starting and they eat like crap, I think that's the most important thing, is first to get rid of grains. And then the second thing would be get rid of like maybe vegetable oils, seed oils.
Yeah. So you said you're from an Italian background, and I am as well, and I know how hard it can be when, your nonna nonno, your grandparents can be,
Yeah.
what's it been like, sort of, explaining to your Italian grandparents, to your parents, when they sort of, you know, say, "Oh, have some pasta," or do
Yeah.
they sort of judge it?
Um, well, my grandparents are they're not alive anymore, and my dad
Oh,
died a few
oh,
years ago, but he wasn't
my bad.
Italian. That's okay. No. But my mom, she's sort of starting to get on board a little bit. Sadly, she just got diagnosed with breast cancer. So I'm trying to help her understand how important it is to get rid of the carbs, but she doesn't quite understand that. She's trying though. But yeah, she grew up with in a bakery. And um yeah, she now realizes that bread and sugar is addictive. She does think that. um but it's a little bit hard, like at my in-laws, because my mother-in-law loves to use food as a way to serve and love her children. So,
100%.
but she's very respectful. And you know I think some people think you're just in a phase and that you're going to stop. You're going to just do it for a while. And then they're always kind of shocked when you're like, no, I'm not, like, I don't want that. And I'm not going to eat that again. you know,
Yeah, 100%. And I think I saw something. Oh, you mentioned that you had some kids and that they struggle with like stuff like autism and ADHD. Did you want to sort of talk a bit about that and where you think the carnivore diet can come into that, or yeah, if you think it can help them?
I do. I really think it can help. I have watched so many interviews, maybe two or three, with people who had autism. Those were beautiful interviews. And it was so neat to see how much relief they got with carnivore. Um, so the boys are autistic. They're just not quite at the age or the understanding. They're not at the right age for me to try to explain to them. Um, this yet. My daughter, though, is 15 and she's starting to learn about it. And I just sort of might share an interview. Like if I'm watching an interview and someone is really anxious, for instance, and she's very anxious, my daughter, um, and I say, oh, she'll relate to this person, then I might send her that interview and I'll say, hey, look how awesome this girl's story is. And I won't put any attachment to it. Like I won't put any pressure on her to do it. Because right now my ex-husband has custody of them after our custody
Yeah.
battle. And if that remains, all I can do is really share, what I know. But obviously we all choose what we're going to put in our mouth or not, even a child in the end. I have a lot of regrets, but with how I raised them and that I wasn't stronger in my convictions. And I feel like, wow, I really did put too much emphasis on like what people thought. And I thought I didn't. Everybody said I was a food Nazi. It's so funny because like I got called the food Nazi when my kids were little because I said, no, they need more fat and they need less sugar. And, well, why are you trying to do that? They're just kids. Don't you see like it makes them happy? And that kind of stuff is so toxic,
I know.
you
Yeah.
know? And
Mm.
and I wish that I had put my foot down more, but I think I got tired. I got really tired because you can only deal with that so much when you're raising, children with different needs um and so anytime they're in our house, it can be difficult because I catch myself being the normal mom that wants to like treat them or make something I know they love. So it's a difficult process for everybody. But I trust that in time that they will um, learn the truth. And I just think it must be so neat to be your age and have all of these resources that we didn't have when I was
Y-
younger.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's quite a blessing, and that's sort of like why I have to make this YouTube channel because I've got like a 20-year advantage over everyone else of learning this, so kind of have to. But you said that
Hmm.
yeah, your daughter had ADHD. How old's your daughter, if you don't mind?
So she was diagnosed around 8.5,
Age
and
8.
yeah, and
Wow.
she's 15 now.
And
But I think I heard your video where you talked about your story and when you were 17, you were diagnosed.
yeah, 17 last or yeah, like end of 16, 17, yeah.
And I think it's so true with ADHD. It gets kind of worse when you hit those older years. Um, so I can kind of see that happening with her, because school gets harder. There's more expectations.
What what sort of symptoms like did she have that the doctor actually diagnosed her with?
So she's a girl, it's a little different, comes out a little different.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, than
Like
boys, but
inattentive more so?
yeah, it's the inattentive type. So with her, she's literally not going to hear you or process that you said her name until you've said it maybe three times. And when you don't know as a parent, if you don't know that your child can't process that fast, that you just think they're being, bad. You think they're just ignoring me because I said your name and I know you heard me. And so I think a diagnosis can help a lot because as a parent, you might just be so confused. Like, why is my child disobeying? And it helps a little bit with the understanding. So then I was like, oh, okay, she's just slower to process it and she's focused on whatever she's doing and she's not focused on everything out here. So she has to like switch, and that's harder for people with ADHD to switch back and
Yeah.
forth.
Yeah.
And things like, it was very difficult for her to remember more than one step directions, so okay, one thing at a time. I can't tell her to do two things. Um, Only one thing at a time. And she was picky eater, which can also be related to ADHD.
Do you think that? she has the possibility to heal a lot of her symptoms by going sort of low carb and high fat. Do you think that?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I
You think so?
do. I have no doubt. I mean, I didn't have ADHD, but I had pretty bad social anxiety, depression, sensory. I had a lot of sensory issues like she does. And I do believe that eating a lot of fat and getting rid of those processed sugars, carbs would, I think it would just be amazing for her. So it's
Yeah,
my hope.
because I was talking to Chafee about ADHD, and he was saying that he thinks it's a bit more of a more studies are coming out that it may actually be a metabolic condition. So things like
Hmm.
seed oils, even though they wouldn't directly affect the brain, it would just cause inflammation in your body and just the whole systemic inflammation, and obviously the sugars and the grains which just fry your brain. And um
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, it's quite interesting. I do think that it will take time, but I think that the carnivore diet is yeah, her best shot, or just kids' best shot with ADHD to heal. Just because your brain is like 60% fat. So
Right.
just feeding it all the fat would just like it would just have all those neurons and stuff firing, and it was just yeah, I think it would really help like calm it down. Um, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've had enough experience with different diets, and uh at this age, I can honestly say I think that is the ticket. I think it's the key.
You you said you said you're on a keto diet before.
Hmm.
What's sort of your like main differences, and why do you think the carnivore diet is better if you think it is? Like what's sort of the main differences between keto and carnivore for you?
Well, for me, I think the keto, it's a little confusing. There's just too much gray with keto. Um, it's you're allowed vegetables, I guess. But then when you go put it in the little calculator, you're not really allowed that many vegetables. And
Yeah,
so you're trying to figure out what you can eat, what you shouldn't eat. And then there's all these like processed foods that say keto on them everywhere. And
ketos.
that always sucked me in. So I'd be at the gas station and it'd say keto cookie. And I would think it's okay. So I would get it. But I really think those were really problematic for me, all those treats. Um, and you just can't do that with carnivore. Carnivore is real food, and it's literally just, I mean, if you're strict, it's just meat. But if you're semi-strict, it's like meat, eggs, butter, and not much else, some dairy
Yeah.
products, and that's about it. And so it's not complicated. And I just think, why would you want to make it more complicated? And I love it. I love the simplicity of it. And it's the most enjoyable as far as like eating goes. I enjoy carnivore more than any other food I've ever enjoyed, which sounds crazy because it sounds like it shouldn't be that way.
Yeah, I feel like keto is almost still a bit of a fad diet because I don't know if you go online, like it works, it definitely works, but I still think
Oh yeah.
it's still got a bit of that fadness in it because if you go online, there's all these like keto recipes, how to have like
Hmm.
just get under 25 grams of carbs while still having
Hmm.
your favorite sweets. And the thing about carnivore, it's just more ancestral based. Like it's really simple. You're having whole foods, you're
Yeah.
having just one, two, three ingredients, but keto it can be keto friendly, but be stuffed with preservatives, stuffed with seed oils, sugars,
Yeah,
and
it's
stuff like
got
that.
all these hidden, things that are probably harming you or probably making you feel like crap because we didn't feel like this. I mean, we didn't feel as good. My husband lost almost 30 pounds.
Well,
And yeah, I mean, he looks great. It was a lot of water weight. I think I lost like 6 or 7 pounds of water weight.
yeah,
Um, yeah.
yeah, that's pretty cool. Um, we'll wrap up here. Thanks so much for coming on, Deborah. It was really cool to hear your story and how the last 6 months you've healed from a lot of these things and, starting to come off medication. Um, where can all our viewers find you?
Um, you can find me on YouTube at the Catholic Carnivore, and I
Yeah.
share some recipes and like what I'm eating and stuff like that. And then on Instagram at the Catholic Carnivore.
All right, sweet. The links will be below. Make sure you guys go and subscribe to
Okay.
her, like all her content, binge all her content. All right, thanks so much for coming on today, Deborah.
Thank you. Good luck with your channel. It's awesome.